How do you stop an enemy that seems unstoppable? An enemy that sweeps across continents, leaving nothing but destruction in its wake? That's exactly what Hungary faced when the Mongols invaded in the 13th century. It's a tale of devastation, resilience, and ultimately, triumph. But Hungary's road to victory was anything but simple. What strategies did they use? What mistakes did the Mongols make? And how did a small European kingdom rise to defeat one of the most powerful forces in history? By the end of this story, you'll understand not just how Hungary survived, but how it won. Let's uncover the gripping details of how Hungary finally crushed the Mongols. Welcome to Historical Veils, where we uncover the hidden stories of the past. Let's dive in. The 13th century was a time of fear across Europe, and much of that fear was due to the Mongols. By 1241, the Mongol Empire stretched across Asia, with no military force strong enough to challenge them. Under the leadership of Batu Khan and the tactical genius of General Subutai, the Mongols began pushing into Europe, sweeping through Russia, Poland, and Hungary like a storm. Their reputation alone struck terror into the hearts of people. Hungary, in particular, was in a precarious situation. King Béla IV had been warned about the Mongol threat. In fact, as early as 1237, a Mongol envoy named Friar Julian arrived in Hungary to inform the king that the Mongols were coming. Béla knew what was at stake, but even with the warnings, Hungary was ill-prepared for the invasion. The nobility didn't take the threat seriously, and internal divisions weakened the kingdom's military response. The invasion began in March 1241. Batu Khan led an army estimated to be around 130,000 strong, a mix of Mongol cavalry, conscripts from conquered regions, and mercenaries. Hungary, on the other hand, managed to muster a force of roughly 60,000 men, but even with these numbers, the Mongols held a massive advantage. The Hungarian forces gathered to meet the Mongols near the Sajo River in what became the Battle of Mohi, and it's here that the first seeds of disaster were sown. King Béla's army was poorly organized, with various factions within Hungary failing to coordinate effectively. The Mongols, in contrast, had perfected the art of war through years of conquest, utilizing psychological tactics, strategic deception, and an unmatched mastery of mobility. Here's where things take a dark turn. The night before the battle, the Hungarians believed they had trapped the Mongols by blocking the Sajo River bridge. What they didn't realize was that this was exactly what the Mongols wanted. Under the cover of darkness, Subutai led a surprise attack, crossing the river from an unguarded section and encircling the Hungarian camp. The battle turned into a massacre. Imagine the chaos, screams in the night, horses galloping, the clash of swords. The Hungarian forces were overwhelmed by Mongol cavalry and their infamous composite bowmen, who could shoot accurately while riding at full speed. By morning, Hungary's army was in ruins, with tens of thousands dead, including many nobles and leaders. King Béla IV barely escaped with his life, fleeing to Austria, where he was initially refused shelter by the Duke of Austria, an ally who seized the opportunity to extract a ransom from the fleeing king. Meanwhile, the Mongols laid waste to Hungary, burning cities, destroying crops, and slaughtering civilians. The kingdom was on its knees. But why, after such devastation, did the Mongols suddenly leave? In 1242, just as suddenly as they had arrived, the Mongols retreated from Hungary. Many historians have debated why this happened. The most widely accepted explanation is the death of the great Khan Ogedei in December 1241. Mongol leaders were bound by tradition to return to Mongolia to participate in the election of a new great Khan. Batu Khan, leading the European campaign, had no choice but to pull his forces out and return east to secure his position within the Mongol hierarchy. This retreat was Hungary's only reprieve. The Mongols left behind a shattered kingdom, but it was this unexpected withdrawal that gave Hungary the chance to rebuild. However, the Mongols were far from finished with Europe, and the fear of their return hung heavily over the continent. King Béla IV realized that Hungary could not survive another Mongol invasion if it remained in its current state. So, he embarked on one of the most ambitious rebuilding efforts in medieval Europe. He fortified Hungary's cities, creating stone walls around key locations. These fortifications were crucial, as Mongols had little experience in prolonged siege warfare against well well-defended stone castles. Additionally, Béla IV reformed the military. He introduced new tactics, learning from the Mongols' own strategies. He also invited settlers from Western Europe to repopulate areas devastated by the Mongols, offering them land and privileges. This influx of skilled craftsmen and soldiers helped to strengthen the kingdom both economically and militarily. He knew that time was short. The Mongols could return at any moment. King Béla IV also sought alliances. Hungary had learned a harsh lesson about standing alone. He reached out to neighboring kingdoms and the papacy, strengthening ties with Poland and other European states. Hungary wasn't just rebuilding its walls and armies, it was weaving a network of political and military alliances that could support them in the event of another Mongol attack. The moment of truth came in 1285 when the Mongols returned under the command of Nogai Khan. This invasion was different from the first. Hungary had spent decades preparing for this moment, and they were ready. Fortified cities, an organized military, and a strategically aware leadership waited for the Mongols. The Mongols, as before, launched lightning raids and used their typical hit-and-run tactics, but this time, the fortified cities held firm. Towns like Esztergom and Buda, now surrounded by stone walls, withstood the Mongol assaults. The Mongols couldn't penetrate these defenses, and they weren't prepared for long sieges. But the real turning point came when the Hungarians, under King Ladislaus IV, Béla IV's grandson, used the Mongols' own tactics against them. Instead of fighting them head-on, the Hungarians harassed the Mongol forces, conducting small, fast raids on their supply lines. This left the Mongol army weakened and unable to sustain itself for a prolonged campaign. Another critical factor in Hungary's defense was the weather. Hungary's marshy terrain in the spring months worked against the Mongol cavalry, whose horses struggled in the muddy conditions. The very land itself seemed to be fighting alongside Hungary. After months of unsuccessful attacks and dwindling supplies, the Mongols retreated once again. But this time, it was not because of a political event in Mongolia. It was because Hungary had beaten them. This wasn't just a victory for Hungary, it was a victory for all of Europe. The Mongol invasion of 1285 marked the last serious attempt by the Mongols to conquer the continent. Hungary had shown that with the right preparation, even the most powerful military force in the world could be stopped, and they had done it by learning from their mistakes, adapting to new strategies, and fortifying their kingdom both physically and politically. Hungary's triumph over the Mongols solidified its place as one of Europe's strongest kingdoms in the late medieval period. King Béla IV became known as the second founder of Hungary, a title that reflected his role in rebuilding and strengthening the nation after the devastation of the first Mongol invasion. His reforms set the foundation for a more resilient Hungary that could withstand future threats, not just from the Mongols, but from other potential invaders. And while the Mongols remained a force in Asia for many more centuries, their ambitions in Europe were effectively halted. Hungary had become a symbol of resistance, a beacon of hope for other European nations facing external threats. What can we learn from Hungary's struggle against the Mongols? History teaches us that even in the face of overwhelming odds, resilience and preparation can make all the difference. Hungary's story is one of perseverance, adaptability, and determination. It's a reminder that no matter how insurmountable a challenge might seem, there's always a way to fight back, to rebuild, and to emerge stronger than before.